I think I just want people to know that intuitive piece, I talk about it in the book too, but there's so much research that actually shows like it's an inherent part of our birthright. It's a skill. I think all of us have access to it. I never would have believed I'd be doing this work or that this was even real a couple decades ago. But if it is something you want to connect with, and I do think there's so much value in getting some level of connection with it, because it is really our like personal compass or GPS system that'll help guide us to the right step for us. It's really this two-way conversation with us and this loving source of consciousness, whether it's God, universe, source, of like we can put out questions and actually receive personalized guidance and messages back. And that's so helpful, especially in these times.
Hello, and welcome to episode 122 of Toward a Better Life. It's a podcast that features like-minded people sharing stories, ideas, and activities on what we can do to generate a better life individually and collectively. As many of us recognize, in today's world, there truly is a need to balance, harmonize, and seek compassion and kindness on so many levels. Personally, culturally, spiritually, that's just to name some of them. But it all begins with each one of us as individuals. And that's what I like to share on this podcast from around the world, seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind. It's a platform, and it's like a school, a venture, and a venue that begins to continue that journey to wholeness and harmony. It also offers the opportunity for you to share your prose, music, poetry, or storytelling on the show, and we have been doing that, as you may have noticed if you've been following for a while. And please subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform. And keep following for weekly magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. Also, remember to support the show by leaving a review on Apple and Spotify podcast. It only takes just a minute to leave that review, and it would mean so much, and it helps to promote the program that much more. Please visit my website, towardabetterlife.com. You can also contact me to learn more about your free discovery call to help you on your journey. Send all your inquiries to me, Kevin, at towardabetterlife.com. And thanks to those of you who already have. And just know that the phone line is available for you for your free discovery call. You know, today's world does offer so many opportunities that can help us and guide us toward fulfillment, help us overcome trauma, or just help us with initializing plans that work for our spiritual growth. Deciding which therapist or other professional it would be the best for us and our needs with where we are right now, it can be challenging. You know, we ask the questions like, will this person work well with me? Will we be a good fit to really help me with my needs? Will they work with me as an individual? Those are important questions to ask oneself when you begin the journey, and you might be a little confused and maybe overwhelmed with some of the wonderful things that begins to happen. Well, Katie Turner is a registered psychologist who also specializes in working with highly sensitive and empathic people, trauma healing, personal healing, cycle breaking, and navigating spiritual awakenings. Katie has written a book, and it's about spirituality and avoiding the red flags and navigating the spiritual path with integrity. There are going to be links in the show notes for that, by the way. She believes in a holistic approach to healing. Katie has studied a wide range of Western psychological approaches and Eastern healing techniques. She's passionate, to say the least, about her helping her clients to heal the past, find more peace in the present, and to create their best possible future. Her mission? It's to bring together the science of psychology to the practice of spirituality. And she offers these consultation services, sessions, workshops, and resources for organizations and modern-day spiritual seekers. And we have the opportunity to talk with her today. Katie lives in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, with her daughter and rescue dog. When she's not holding space in her practice or working on her latest project, you can find her exploring the Rocky Mountains or on her yoga mat. Stay tuned now for my chat with Katie Turner on this episode, and we're going to be talking about navigating our spiritual path on the episode of Toward a Better Life. I'm delighted to welcome Katie Turner, a registered psychologist from Alberta. Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Nice to have you on the program. So you're a speaker and founder of Katie Turner Psychology Inc. And you've got a book out there that you've got that has really gotten my interest. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Katie and what you do as a registered psychologist and how spirituality can be uh, be a part of that?
Yeah, thanks so much. I've been in the psychology field for almost 2 decades now. I in private practice for a decade. Um, I definitely didn't start off as spiritual. I went psychology science route first. Didn't really believe in it beyond maybe the power of placebo effect, which is like the sugar pill. And if you believe it's going to help, it actually does have a very measurable effect. Like belief is a powerful thing, but I didn't think spirituality, intuition was much beyond that. And then I kind of stumbled on into my own spiritual awakening. Looking back, I realized I was doing a lot of practices and having the space where if somebody actually wanted to pursue that and strengthen that connection, those are the kind of things you would help you do that. But I didn't believe in that at the time, so I didn't consciously realize that those like meditation, just having a lot of space, breath work, yoga, those kind of practices that would actually open that up more. And so when I went through my own spiritual awakening, that really changed how I kind of experienced reality in terms of not just this thinking, logical mind. Spiritual awakening is really, it's not a logical exercise of like the philosophy, here's the pros and cons of why there might be a higher power, whether that's like God, source, universe, whatever you want to call that. Spirituality is not religion, it's your own personal relationship with that power, that source.
Hmm.
And you can be religious or not.
Right.
And that really the awakening is actually an experience. Like once you go through it and have experiences, you're not believing anymore, you're knowing.
Hmm. There's a
And
good one.
yeah.
That's a
And
good
so,
way. That's a good way of looking at it. That it's a knowing. You
yeah.
just simply know, and that's okay. So,
hmm
yeah.
Yeah, you've had experiences and like verification and confirmation. So I understand because I went before I had those experiences, I didn't necessarily know what to believe and
Mm.
wouldn't have been convinced one way or the other just by someone else's story. And so once I kind of started going through that, it was a number of years where I was kind of in the quote unquote spiritual closet, where I explored more of that intuitive, energetic world, very separate from the field. So it took quite a long time to figure out, to find the evidence-based trainings and existing like mentors, teachings to actually bring it in as a registered health professional. Like there are guidelines around what kind of techniques you can use. It needs to be in an existing training model. Like
Hmm.
you can't just
Yeah.
pull in Reiki or shamanism. So it was a number of years to kind of incorporate both, but for the last 10 years, I've really been doing bridging both worlds. And I do a lot of depth psychology, a lot of trauma therapy, a lot of helping people connect with their own intuition or like their spiritual resources. And there was just so many kind of questions and areas of struggle that I see over and over again. Like many I've experienced in my own journey, and then I've seen it with hundreds, if not thousands, of clients by now. That is what really inspired the book. Because I just kept kind of saying, like, there's no, like, how would you know when you're trying to navigate the spiritual world? I've said multiple times when, if we're searching like spiritual awakening symptoms on Google, it is the wild west of answers that will come up for
Really.
people.
Say that search engine that I say search. What's the search parameter that you've tried?
If you search like just spiritual awakening, intuition, connecting with guides, like
Hmm.
many, there are professionals out there who do bridge both worlds, but many are operating under the radar and not speaking very publicly.
Right.
Like there's spiritual experiences are actually very common. And it's one of the things that's very rarely studied scientifically or talked about scientifically. Like that is
Hmm.
starting to change. But I think there's a US Gallup poll that found they found 40% of the US population that took the poll actually rated. There was a question of, have you ever had spiritual or religious experience that changed the course of your life. Like, so not small,
Mm,
but about 40 some percent rated it as a 5 out of 5. Like 100% did. So that's huge.
it is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the case for me. And but it's so few people talk about it because there's still fear of Western psychology doesn't really, if we look at the like DSM, there's not many places to put spiritual experiences, and there's often a fear of it being mislabeled as like quote unquote crazy or mental illness. And many times it's not. It can be actually very helpful in resilience building and like a very positive thing for people. On the flip side, if you go into some spiritual communities who don't understand mental health, sometimes it's like, oh, this is just a spiritual awakening. Like, don't worry about the mental health. You don't need medication. That is also not always true.
Hmm. What's DSM?
Oh, like the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's kind of like
Okay.
the quote unquote Bible of mental health
Okay.
diagnosis. Yeah.
So I find it interesting that when you talk about that, that I actually have had opportunities to talk with other folks, and I even had a workshop with some folks in it that are in the registered counselor field, if you will, and how we're starting to bridge the stuff. The workshop that I did with them was ancestral healing, becoming the hollow bone,
Mhm.
and it is touchable.
Mhm.
It is a viable avenue, if you will, in that area. I know that a while back I had Philip Cargam on from OBOD, the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, and Philip had mentioned about how, I say mentioned, it's known that he was a psychologist and psychiatrist who's retired, and that was his thing, that was his work that he did for decades, but he was also a druid. And
Mhm.
people say, well, how can you possibly have those two things involved? They're not really the same thing. And yeah, they are.
Mhm.
It's your perspective. It's how you see stuff. Your book, F asterisk, Toxic Spirituality, Avoiding Red Flags, Navigating the Spiritual Path with Integrity. It's a mouthful, but
Mhm.
I would say, what do you reference when you think about toxic spirituality?
Yeah, there's a few different areas that I kind of talk about. I think there's with all things, it's on almost on a spectrum where there's some stuff that's really harmful out there in certain spiritual communities or like self-proclaimed teachers, guides, healers, where I've seen that I've come across them in my own awakening journey. I've seen many clients suffer even trauma from getting involved or like major exploitation and boundary violations there. There's more and more documentaries coming out with these kind of like cult pieces. So that's one area is spiritual ability or like psychic ability doesn't mean emotional maturity or integrity on a personal level. Like someone could be very spiritually gifted, very charismatic. They might even be really well known in the community or internationally, and like they may not be a very good person to actually work with or safe.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I talk about how to recognize that or questions to ask yourself. And I've had those experience of that we are actually energetically a spiritual being having a human experience.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of it is just not knowing what we don't know. It's great. Like that realization can be amazing, but we are still in a human body nervous system container in this incarnation.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can go too far in terms of bypassing that of like, oh, just think positive thoughts or like your soul signed up for this. And we're not doing a good job of humaning and supporting people through universal emotions, through it can be very gaslighting, even though it's unintentional, of like this toxic positivity, or it's like, how do we actually move through these human emotions and experiences and be in the human experience and also be connected to the spiritual? And there's times and places for both. It's not one or the other. Like we have to acknowledge the human in it as well.
And it goes back to the old thing, Katie, of we know the term charlatan. And I think
Mhm.
that's what we're touching on. So I know it's in your book, but have you got a couple of key questions that people should ask themselves about, I'm feeling really good about this, but there's just something inside of me. There's a gut feeling that something ain't quite right here. And I would think that that would be question number one. If you're getting that kind of a red flag, then maybe you should go someplace else because yeah, let's face it, the solar plexus is a fight or flight area of our body, and it's there for a reason. And if we feel wrong, or if we feel uncomfortable, or if we feel tight,
Mm.
that's aren't those some things we could look at?
Yeah, it could be. It's so one of the things is I think there's charlatan, there's the worry of charlatan on one end of the extreme. There's also this like cognitive principle where the when we know a little bit about a subject, we think we know more than we do. And it's fantastic that there's so much more information about mental health, trauma, like spiritual experiences. But sometimes you have some people who've done like very little training and don't realize what they don't know, and it
Mhm.
gets potentially dangerous there. So even that piece about, just trust your gut feeling. If someone has a trauma history, if they don't know if they can even trust themselves, sometimes safe conditions may bring that up in us and we may not know. If we have a stable history, we're relatively like clear on who to trust. Like, and often those people are less vulnerable to being manipulated anyway.
Hmm.
So I think there's a few things to consider there. I think spirituality or not, we're not really taught in our schools or family systems usually what are characteristics of like how do we be more emotionally mature, self-aware, able to regulate our emotions, able to have constructive dialogue, to take in feedback. If we can work on that in ourselves and know how to see that in other people, then we're much better equipped. Because it's like, how do they actually handle feedback? Are they walking their talk? Like, do they get defensive and gaslighty and shut down? Are they using fear to kind of control or manipulate, or trying to be the only source of your answers,
Yeah.
trying to, guilt you or scare you into spending more money or investing with them?
Okay. Those
Yeah.
those are some good ones. And that's
Yeah.
and people will do it at the drop of a hat because it makes them feel good.
Uh,
And that's the other piece is, well, they make me feel so good and they make me feel so complete and they make me feel so wonderful. They just asked me for $1,000 to do this and this and this, and it's going to make me feel that much better. Well, in truth, it's a moneymaker.
yeah.
And it's unfortunate within I'm going to say it because I've experienced it I've been teaching Reiki for an example for like 25 years, and I have seen many cases through the years of
Mm.
people that are teaching Reiki and they're saying you need to do this, 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 and this, and I'm very old school when it comes to teaching it,
Mm.
but I see different people, they have like 8 different levels, and each level is $100. Well, imagine that. But you'll feel more spiritual when you're done. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
then you have other people that I know personally that they treat having students like notches on a gun belt. How many people did you attune this week? And it's
Yeah.
like, really? Seriously?
Yeah. Like the
Why
ego
are
is getting very involved in it. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, what's your real motivation for doing this? Why do you really
Yeah.
want to do this? Um,
Yeah. And I think there's kind of, I talk about two sides to it as well, because there's a difference between, I think sometimes it can go too far the other way where it can be like, oh, if you're a genuine healer isn't going to charge, or like it shouldn't be about the money. And if we're actually doing that work as to support ourselves and our family, like it has to be sustainable. Like it's so I think there's a difference between someone advising and being like clear in their boundaries and their rates, but not trying to force you or convince you to do it. It's like this is who it's a fit for, but if this is going to be very financially stressful for you, it's not the only way and it's not the only path. And
right.
not wanting to put someone in that position versus kind of these sleazy coaching sales tactics of, oh, well, you're not invested in it then, or and I think that's part of also the like toxic spirituality is a lot of our these like manifestation, like a lot of the documentaries that started it, it's kind of this like capitalistic, like whitewashed interpretation of very ancient teachings, that it's
Hmm.
all about like money and visualizing and but really this like ego driving the goals versus soul driving the goals is different. It's like soul is not all about the mansion and the vacation and the millions of dollars. It's about like what expands your heart, your capacity for love. Money may be part of that, but it is not the end goal in itself. And oftentimes those soul messages are like, don't chase that. Like, be of service, do this, and have it like love yourself and love others.
Yeah. I've learned that if you do the work and you're doing it from a good place,
Hmm.
the the financial gain that you have is it's a given. It's like
Yeah,
secondary
yeah.
because I'm approaching this from a proper perspective. And
Hmm.
honestly, Katie, I was in that camp for probably a year or two, uh, as far as Reiki was concerned, because for a period of time before I started teaching it, I was giving away sessions
Hmm.
because I didn't feel it was correct, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't feel it was a proper thing for me to charge something that is freely given to me. And I get that. It's a great way, but it's that other side of the pendulum, and it's a perfect example of that,
yeah.
that you need to consider your time. And that
Mhm.
was actually the wake up call for me from somebody, another elder, as a matter of fact. He says, "Well, I think that's very commendable of you, and that you do that from a good heart. But let me ask you a question. When you go to the dentist, do you tell them that's okay, I'm not going to pay you because this is what you like to do?"
Yeah, yeah,
It doesn't work that way. And you have to say, if you don't want to charge for the service itself, then charge for your time. And
yeah,
that was the light that went on.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'll give this away, but my time is worth something. So
Yeah.
what is your time worth?
Yeah,
And
and I went through that as well too. Early on in my like business wise, I just if anyone was like I couldn't afford it, I just would be like, "Oh, okay, like what can you afford?" And then I started to realize some people there it's like, "Oh, you spent $50,000 traveling or gambling or other things." I was like, "This does," and I'm then I saw my business like actual numbers because I went in it more just intuitively guided soul based but had no business training and I when I had my first tax year I was realized very quickly that like I would have do better working at McDonald's and this was not going to be sustainable with a master's degree. I wasn't feeling good because I do believe in it's not this piece of if you value it, you will pay it. It's not that simple. It's everybody's position and privilege is different in society. There are disadvantaged groups. If you want to be of service more and people genuinely can't afford it, but their heart's in the work, they value it, like make that a part of your business practice. But that's not just for everyone. Sometimes people don't value it and they're spending the money somewhere else. And
yeah,
that like healing work, you need to be personally invested in it. And that doesn't mean you necessarily need to pay top dollar for it, but like you need to be involved in it too to get the results.
yeah.
It's not like going to the dentist where the dentist just does all the work and your teeth are fixed, whether you care or not. Like,
So going back into the stuff of spirituality and so forth, you are obviously very passionate about helping your clients, and we talk about trauma, and I in my own past, in my own work, that was one area that I like to work with because, to carry around that trauma, I will still see it today doing massage therapy, and I teach it in some continuing ed classes, that for a new therapist coming in, they don't know what to do with that person that's on the table. They're doing a massage, and all of a sudden they have an emotional release.
hmm hmm
And you're familiar with the term. I know, like armoring, and we get through those levels of armor that we put on ourselves because we want to, our human being, our that part of us wants to protect that, because I don't want to experience that trauma again, so I put up a shield. And then to make sure that no one gets through it, I put up another layer of that same shield. And then we do it just so long, and then no one can get through. I say that nothing can get through. And then all of a sudden, you have basically a flood of
Yeah.
emotions. And it can be any
Yeah.
little thing. It can be a smell, it can be a taste, it can be a visual, it can be a song, you know it. So,
Yeah, and I talk about that in the book too, because I think that's a really important piece. Like my training around the nervous system, trauma processing is it's one of those places where a lot of mainstream spirituality can really bypass the human experience of even if we're a spiritual being, we are in a human body and nervous system that's been
mhm.
shaped by evolution, that has been we have a like subconscious and unconscious mind that's running about 95, 85% of the show. Our nervous system stores pockets of intense emotional memory different than positive emotional memory. So it is not a matter of just thinking positive thoughts and saying affirmations. Like if that works for you, great. But telling a trauma survivor, like, oh, you manifested this, or like if you're feeling this, you're going to manifest more, or just think this way. It's like our nervous system doesn't work that way. People need tools.
Hmm.
Some spiritual communities can even really stigmatize medication, and some people really need medication as part of a holistic treatment plan. I understand the pushback against like pharmaceutical industry or medical piece of here's just a prescription, just take this drug and don't deal with any of the root issues. But if someone is engaged in their healing and dealing with like the root cause, and even with that, there's some things that do need medication long term. It's not just about thinking your way through it. And it's not a personal failing or not spiritual enough if you need to use different tools from different systems as a part of a holistic plan. So I think the trauma piece is a really big one, and same with like grief, loss, hard human emotions. Like as a society, we don't do very well with holding space for that for people.
Hmm. And what I think I'm hearing too, when you talk about pharma and so forth, and using pharmaceuticals when necessary, I'm going to make a guess that you probably try for using low doses as opposed to higher doses with
I don't
people.
prescribe. I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't prescribe anything. I can't
That's right.
advise on it.
That's
But
right. You're not a
yeah,
psychiatrist, you're a
yeah,
psychologist.
yeah.
You can recommend stuff.
Yeah, but sometimes because I'm spiritual and holistic, people may assume that I'm anti-medication, and I'm not. I'm actually, it's so case by case. And I've also seen it like work magic for people too, that again, there's multiple pathways for healing and there's no one right path for everyone.
Yeah. It's like herbalism. How is it like herbalism? Sometimes people say, "Well, I'm gonna treat myself herbally for whatever the case may be," and they don't understand that sometimes if you let something go long enough,
Mhm,
herbals will help, but
mhm.
it's not going to help the acute that you really need help with.
Yeah.
And what you need then is you need that terrible word. You need an antibiotic. You
Yeah,
need surgery. You need this. And it's not a question that you're no longer holistic or you're no longer really taking care of your body from a holistic viewpoint because you went to the doctor and you got a prescription. No, that's not it at all. You took care of yourself with what you had at the time.
for sure. And I think holistic should be everything that's available in this time
Yes.
period is like the whole of all the treatment options of what is actually going to give you the best result. And also I would really validate for a lot of people. It's like sometimes, yeah, maybe if we had social structures, community, didn't have to work so hard to survive, had support with our kids, like had time to recharge, we might not need some extra support with medication, but many people's reality is like that social system is not available or not strong enough for
Yeah.
them. That sometimes like that is the option that's going to keep them afloat.
Hmm. Hmm. What are some of the other avenues that you utilize within your holistic practice? Because it is there are talk therapies. I'm going to assume, and you do some other things. You made mention briefly about shamanism. Did I hear that in there too? Or
Well, I just kind of threw that out as like you can't really do that as a registered professional. You'd have to have it coached in something. Like you'd have to have an evidence-based treatment. So I spent a number of years and invested a lot in training in like transpersonal psychology, like family constellation, so ancestral healing work, energy psychology, working with meridian systems, a lot of different trauma processing and training. And transpersonal is more the spiritual side. I'm in private practice, so that, I mean, I never thought I would go into business. It wasn't something I initially wanted to do, but the more I went through my own awakening and saw the power of these other techniques, it's very difficult in the existing kind of mental health system, like government agency structure. A lot of that is still very conscious mind, short term, goal focused, which is helpful for a time and place, but there's really a push for like 5 to 7 sessions. Let's work on this thing, like not dig too deep and get you out the door. Whereas I think a lot of our patterns, again, it's that I do a lot of work with people who've actually already done a level of work. They may have already been in therapy and they just have this sense that they're like, there's something more I haven't got to the root of. Like I can
Mhm.
I can analyze these patterns. Many people are very aware of like this was my childhood, so this is why I act this way. And that was me coming out of psychology, like early years. I was like, I know I can analyze my family tree generations back and see like trace these issues and see like this is why I act the way I do or have these anxieties or experiences. And it still like didn't actually change those from happening. And then at a certain point, you start to shame yourself because you know better. So why are you still doing this? But for me, like that trauma therapy, the nervous system training, like that wasn't part of my actual like grad school need to register as a psychologist training. That was additional after.
Okay.
So, but that for me was what actually really shifted things for myself in my own healing journey. And I saw the power of that. And then the spiritual side of it was also realizing I'm highly sensitive and also empathic. So I'm intuitively actually picking up on other people's emotions and physical sensations. And that is not even recognized in the medical system or psychiatric system. So those clients, it's like you don't need to just process emotions. You need to figure out if this is even yours or not. And if it's not yours, we need to help you better protect your energy. We need to help you have more distance from this intuitive information and maybe do some deeper healing work so you're not taking it on in the same way.
So as a psychologist, how do you work with intuition?
Yeah.
That's got to be a fine line.
Well, there actually is quite a lot of approaches already out there that do have it kind of in there already. Like, I mean, energy psychology, you can work with it because it's tapping on the meridian system. You can use intuition to guide that. It's not about what someone's experiencing and what their conscious mind thoughts are with this. It's about what's the energy and what feels emotionally true, even though you know it's logically not true. There's many different techniques, like when we get into somatic therapies, trauma processing therapies, sometimes it's ancestral field. Like that was part of my awakening where I started to have those experiences with other people where I could know very quickly or have a sense very quickly of like, oh, this isn't even theirs. Like there's other energies showing up in the room with them. Um, Part of my awakening was even like mediumship abilities. Like I would get like images, scenes, stuff that's happened, and I've had a lot of that so much of it verified over time that I'll never override someone's reality. It's like only if this fits, but it can really help. I'm not just listening on a cognitive level. Like I am in the energetic field picking up different things
Okay.
that can happen. And that level wasn't taught in traditional psychology and still really isn't recognized. But for people who are more sensitive or intuitive, like it can be a burden in their life. And sometimes it's diagnosed as anxiety disorder, other things, but it's like there's a level of sensitivity where they're picking up so much of everybody's energy. And the world is not very calm right now. Like it is not a
Really?
very peaceful
Oh,
place.
we're in La La Land. Are you kidding? This is
Yeah,
great.
I know. So if you're empathic, you're like the canary in the coal mine.
Oh,
Like not
yes.
doing well right now if you don't know how to manage that.
Side note, I have to tell you that we just got back from a short vacation, and one of the things that we did is I need some new shoes. And without going down, what kind of shoes do you wear? We went into a mall.
Yeah.
And Katie, that's the first time I've been in a mall, and I can't remember when. And it is every time that I've gone into a mall, it's like,
Order online.
yeah, or just get me out of here. I'm good. Sorry, we don't have that. Oh, thanks. Okay, we'll see you. Bye.
Yeah.
Next. And it's just it's insane that and then the traffic. But it's
Yeah.
just oh my gosh. And we need to learn how to I'm going to use the term that used to be almost like a colloquial that put your shields up, because
Mm.
it's just unbelievable um about the stuff that's out there, and you need to be able to set your I'm going to use a better term is boundaries.
Yeah.
You just really need to set those, because if you don't, people can just and a lot of it is not even intentional.
Oh,
It's
no.
just the way that it happens. And if you don't believe that, go out on the road anywhere between 3:30 and 5:30 in the afternoon, and you'll find out what the collective mind can do.
Yeah.
You know, and if we're faced with this every day, then we need to have some kind of I'm going to say a rescue net
Mhm.
to go to.
Yeah,
So,
I like the cell membrane analogy because it's like the cell membrane is contains the organism, but it also has receptors on the outside. So
mm,
I'll often work with people to help build Because for empathic people, it's almost like your nervous system as a baby, you're born as this little like absorbing sponge, and you don't have those shields. Like you don't come with them.
Mm-mm.
And there's a lot of childhood ways of thinking and things that it's like, this is not a choice. It is not a conscious mind of like, I'm going to take on everything, or like, oops, forgot to put up the shield. It's just like they don't never existed.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more Teflon. Like not everyone has that ability there is research that shows like our energetics do influence each other. There's emotion like mirror neurons. There are like heart fields. So everybody's impacted on some level, but there's some people who are much more sensitive to it, like much more, again, the canary in the coal mine. It feels like a burden and not a gift until we learn how to actually better protect ourselves. So sometimes we need to learn, like, how do we actually even build that so we can still like connect? We can still intuitively have a sense of what's going on, but there's a bit of a barrier between us and everything else. So because if we're processing it all through our body and through our nervous system, like that is very overwhelming. And usually, regular, just conscious mind psychology processing of like feeling the feelings, journaling, like if you're just taking on everyone's emotions, you're never going to get out of that.
Mm-mm.
There's not
No.
enough time.
No. And you've said already a couple of times about how we need to recognize that there are physical parts to us. We are a human and
Hmm.
we are a spirit. Yes, we're a spirit having a human experience. Nice little colloquial term, and it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same token, part of that spirituality, if I can, is also connected in the sense that we need to be aware, like you said, have a sense of what's going on around us. And that can
Hmm.
go on a personal level too.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a really good example. I'm one of those people that you really don't want to be around me very long if I'm in the hangry mode,
Right. Yeah.
because I'm really hungry. And if I
Hmm.
get really hungry, my sugar levels are down
Yeah.
physiologically, and that's going to make me respond accordingly. Where
Hmm.
some people, they don't recognize that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I appreciated so much. My partner said the other day, again, when we were on vacation, that there was a time that I was really hungry and it was time to eat. And because of that, I was a little different.
Hmm. Get you a
Uh,
snack. Don't talk, just snap it.
just function and just get there. And
Yeah.
because I was in the car, and I can be snappy and
Yeah.
true, but that's me. And what would have cured that? Well, maybe if it was going to be a much longer, the best thing would be is pull over and grab a handful of nuts,
Yeah. Yeah.
take a drink of water, anything, get
Yeah.
something in your system. But to be able to be aware of that, I think that's a holistic approach, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because I think there's that self-awareness is so important for us navigating our reality. It's like the experiences that are coming up from within us. It's not just there's what's going on in the outside world, and like that is a valid part of the coin, but there's also like what is this bringing up within us, and what's happening within us that may have nothing to do with what's outside, like the hangry
Yeah.
piece,
Yeah.
where it's like our interpretation is now clouded.
Yeah, it is. So if we can, I want to go back again with your book a little bit here and think about the stuff that's out there. And you did a really good informational thing in the beginning that there are so many opportunities, I'll say, out there today. And I would encourage folks to look into your book because there are plenty of people out there that do need help. And there are plenty of people out there that unfortunately will take their help
Mhm.
in the sense of dollars, in the sense of control, in the sense of whatever. How much of a problem do you think that is today?
I don't know. Like because I have a very niched practice of like I'm seeing a percentage of the population that isn't probably everybody for
Hmm.
sure. So I mean, I see it a lot. I see it a lot for people who have that certain level of personal development work, have a certain level of self-awareness. They also have some connection with spirituality, whether it's just happening, they didn't ask for it, but like they can't ignore it, or they actually have, it's always been part of their life, or it's something they want to consciously develop. I see it a lot in that population, but I wouldn't be able to speak to general statistics and kind of what's going on. But I do think the piece around even just the trauma informed lens of this is how our nervous system processes this, holding space for hard emotions. I think that's relevant for everyone. And even if people like if they're not sure about the book, if they're not in a financial position to do so, I also created a ton of free resources for people. Like I have an online quiz people can do for free and get like a 6-week follow-up series. There's resources of like if you need extra help, here's the appendix from the book to help you look for like the questions to ask and where to look for that. So there's lots of free things as well people can access.
And you think it's more a case for for people like yourself that went through the spiritual awakenings and they're now kind of in that little middle area trying to decide which direction to go. And your book will help people to understand these are some questions to ask yourself before you go down that path. And you need to look out for some of this. And I agree with you totally, Katie, on that there's enough out there, yes, that can help you, but
Mhm.
there is also a smattering out there that may seem to help you, but at the other end of the spectrum, it may not help you. And I think you even mentioned it could be even traumatic.
Yeah, and I think it could be like you said, there's that spectrum of just not knowing enough and people wanting to help, like coming from a good place, but not having enough training to know the limitations of what they can and can't help with and how to screen for that.
Hmm.
Because I think it is something, a double-edged sword of even just mental health being so much more recognized. I've seen since the pandemic, like I've seen some coaches or even angel card readers like pivot and like giving a talk on treating depression. And I'm like, whoa, where's I see nothing in your professional bio that gives you any credibility to be doing this. And there's a extensive training and supervision to be working with somebody one-on-one without anybody overseeing that work. If you're actually treating like mental health conditions, because that's dangerous. Like
Hmm.
it's potentially very dangerous for your clients, and it could be dangerous for you as a practitioner because
Yes.
they don't have appropriate support somewhere else. Like there's a high risk of self-harm or even like taking your own life with really severe depression. And if you don't know how to train for that, if you don't know how to screen appropriately, I think there's spaces for different people to be working and helping, but again, having a holistic team and making sure like the right support is in place so that that person's safe, stable, like I know there's lots of system issues and other things, but it's again, it's one of those areas where I've seen a lot of people start pivoting into mental health or mental health informed language where it gets into this place where I'm like, I'm potentially worried for the people who might work with them if they don't have other support in place.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
like trauma informed of like 100 hours of a training online does not, I would not send you anybody who's highly traumatized.
100 hours isn't enough.
Not at all. And some people, who knows? Like sometimes I can't even tell based on any of their credentials in their bio, like what actual training they have in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we had, I mean, even in college, I can remember that with my stuff that I learned in counseling and so forth. There's a time where you draw the line as a counselor and
Yeah.
say, nope, this is not in my ball. This is
Yeah.
not in my area of expertise. This is not
Yeah.
in my what's so, other
I'm
terms
out
you
of my
might use.
lane. I got to refer. This is
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
yeah.
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 Not my scope of practice. That's what I'm
Yes.
looking for.
Yeah.
I remember the brief part was is that I have done guided meditation for people, and I worked in with that, and I brought it into the Reiki realm, doing work with people like that, and um, I found myself in a really precarious situation once where the person was in that guided meditation, and what I did not recognize is they were now under hypnosis.
Right. Yeah.
And I never put them there. I didn't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're doing stuff like that and you recognize, whoa,
Mhm.
that was my wake up call to go and learn about hypnotherapy and understand how to apply hypnotherapy. And it's not hypnotism. There's two different things entirely. And to
Mhm.
say, because I had the person and I was working with them and they went deep enough
Yeah.
that honestly, I wasn't sure how I was going to bring them back out. And we can say all we want, and I'll just say that I had some really good guides to help me pull this person back
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they had some deep issues and it was
Yeah.
trauma based.
Yeah. Yeah. And trauma is tricky like that. And like even really trained, it can still happen. So, and I think and again, like, and that's part of the pieces is, I talk about that in the book as well too, of like spiritual awakening, but even there's very well-known people who a lot of it's about spiritually opening and connecting and these like higher chakra pieces, but they don't seem to be screening well or at all to say like who is this actually appropriate for?
Hmm.
This can help so many people, but there's going to be some people who may actually like this might actually destabilize them. Like
Yeah.
if there's a history of unprocessed childhood trauma, if there's potential other psychosis things going on, like this could actually not be help. There's no one thing that's going to work for everybody or be helpful for everybody. So I don't claim to have all the answers, but I want to help like bring more of this discussion to public awareness and for people who are doing different types of work so people can yeah, and again, because sometimes like if people even if you're not going through a spiritual awakening, like if someone you care about is there, I have some like little checklists of like it's not a diagnostic criteria, but it's like are they safe and grounded? Are they still functioning in the 3D world? Like maybe they're talking to deceased ancestors and angels, but like they're okay. Like this is good for them.
Yeah.
Whereas others, it's like this is reason to be concerned.
Yeah.
Like this might be overlapping or an actual mental health episode, and there needs to be other support in place.
Yeah. And that's it too. Have a good sense of resources that you can send people to, and even in that case that I was telling you about, my wake up call, I sent that person to someone else who
Yeah,
I
yeah,
knew was
yeah,
trained in this
yeah,
because you don't fool around with that sort of thing. You
yeah,
can hurt someone in the long
yeah,
range.
yeah.
So yeah. So how do people get in touch with you? It looks like katieturnerpsychology.com. Does that
Yeah,
kind of
that's my
cut it?
website. Like the book stuff's on there, the free quiz and 6 week free Discover Your Intuition
Okay.
challenge is on there as well. And then yeah, my socials and everything are there too.
Do you do one-on-one? Do you do stuff online? Do you do it in person? How do you work
I
with
do
people?
one-on-one. So therapy wise, I am limited to Alberta and the Canadian provinces that allow for telehealth with registered professionals in Canada. So I can't go outside of that for therapy. But the book is kind of my first step in I'm aiming to be able to do more like workshops and psychoeducation type groups and facilitation where it wouldn't be therapy. And that's very much an intuitive calling for me now. So I'm still not 100% sure what that'll look like. People can have a say. A lot of it's going to be like, what do I feel called to, and what are people really asking for?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
co-create some of this over the next, who knows how long. Yeah, next phase here. Yeah.
Yeah. What does Katie do to create a better life for herself?
Yeah, well, I think it is trying to uh bring in those practices into day-to-day life and world. Try to be try to limit boundaries. Right now it's like boundaries around a lot of news and social media to be know enough of what I need to know, but then also, okay, how do I channel this into how can I help? Like how can I actually do the work I feel called to do to be part of the change and focus on like the good that's still in the world so I don't get overwhelmed by fear and despair.
That sounds like a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts that you want to share with our audience before we time has flown by, but anything else that you'd like to share with folks?
Yeah, I think I just want people to know that that intuitive piece, I talk about it in the book too, but there's so much research that actually shows like it's an inherent part of our birthright. It's a skill. I think all of us have access to it. I never would have believed I'd be doing this work or that this was even real a couple decades ago, but if it is something you want to connect with, and I do think there's so much value in getting some level of connection with it because it is really our like personal compass or GPS system that'll help guide us to the right step for us. It's really this two-way conversation with us and this loving source of consciousness, whether it's God, universe, source of like we can put out questions and actually receive personalized guidance and messages back. And that's so helpful, especially in these times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been an eye opener, Katie. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your being candid about these areas because it's what we need. We need stuff that's very basic for people to understand, and it's not questioning people's ability to understand stuff, but we need to get beyond some of these, I'm going to say, superficial stuff and get down to the nitty gritty and say these are some real areas we need to look at. And, bravo that we're moving forward with awakening our own spiritual selves. But when we do it with caution, wouldn't you say?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Just be
yeah,
informed.
yeah, Yeah, just be informed. Katie, thanks so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it, and enjoy your day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again, Katie, for your helpful insights on navigating our spiritual paths. We certainly do appreciate it. Check out the show notes for more information about Katie Turner. When you visit her website, you may also take her free Discover Your Dominant Intuitive Ability quiz. It is really cool. And receive a free 6-week Deepen Your Intuition challenge. There are links in the show notes for her website, other opportunities, and her book. If you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, and if you'd like to dive into self-care and self-development or distant shamanic work or Reiki, drop a line to me, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com, for a free discovery call. You can also visit my website, towardaBetterLife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and a few products to assist you on that journey. And there will be more upcoming website stuff coming up, and that includes, of course, some workshops. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Send all your inquiries again to me, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. Please subscribe and follow to Toward a Better Life through your favorite podcast platform, and please leave a review on Apple and Spotify podcast. This helps to spread the word about the program and helps us to create a better life for everyone. If you have a question, or if you'd like to share a story, music, or prose, if it's an audio file, please send it to me as an MP3. Or if you want to be my guest, just write to me, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. Until next week, enjoy your magical journey toward a better life.